Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Wine and Books podcast. My name is God's Favor and I am your host. How is everyone doing? Hmm, I'm okay. For me, I'm okay. I just made my hair, so I feel pretty. I made Kuroba braids, by the way. And yeah, anyways, welcome once again to the pod. In our previous episode, we discussed Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo, and we paired it with the Foxbrook Moscato white wine. If you've not listened to it, make sure you check out the previous episode, okay? Okay. Well, in today's episode, we are pairing Better Never Than Late by the amazing Chika Unigwe. And we're pairing it with this sweet red wine called Sweet Lips. Now, Sweet Lips is a light sweet wine, very easy to drink, especially if you're not really into bitter or very strong wines. It's also very popular, and the first thing you notice when you open this wine is the aroma. It's also very fruity, like berries. Honestly, Sweet Lips is like the kind of wine that you want to drink chilled, with friends, maybe on a hot day, or you just want something sweet and relaxing. This wine also has 9.5% alcohol. Now, let's get into today's book. Let's do like a brief summary, okay? I mentioned earlier that in this episode, we are talking about Better Never Than Late by Chika Unigwe. Now, Chika Nina Unigwe is also the author of On Black Sister Street, The Middle Daughter, and so much more. I read The Middle Daughter and I remember I was so angry at a lot of people in that book. On Black Sister Street is my next read after I am done with my current read. If you've read my latest newsletter, I mentioned I was reading The Woman Next Door by Yewande Omotoso. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. And I also asked in that newsletter, what are you guys currently reading? So don't forget to be a friend of the pod by subscribing to the Wine and Books newsletter if you're not subscribed. The link is in the description box, okay? Okay, so let's continue. Now, this book is a collection of short stories that explores migration and the realities of starting over on foreign soil. It explores what life looks like behind the whole greener pastures and all of that. So it is centered around Nigerian immigrants living in Belgium. These Nigerians had lives back home. Some had careers, some had businesses, but they had to move abroad. For some of them, they wanted better opportunities. For some, they were running away from violence. In general, they wanted something better than what they had back home in Nigeria. And just like most humans, some of them were very optimistic. They were hoping to find immediate success, but in reality, many of them had to start over from the very bottom. They had to take menial jobs, they had to learn new languages. They are basically trying to rebuild their new identities in this new country that they found themselves in. I think we had like 10 stories in general. And my problem with short stories is always that they are just too short. I mean, I get the name, but yeah, I always end up wanting more. And there's something about this book that reminds me of Travelers by Helen Hapila. So let's get into the themes, the questions, the key topics in this book. Now, the first thing I want to say is that I love how in this book, at the beginning of each story, the women are more willing to listen, more willing to obey, and they're even powerless. But by the end, you see them change. They find their voice, they find their strengths, they speak up, and they take back control. That growth is one of the things I enjoy most in this book. So the first thing we are looking at is migration and migration versus reality. This book shows us the harsh reality of starting over in a new country, the struggles, the pains, and that feeling of, oh, you've lost everything. Like I said in the intro, these people left Nigeria for different reasons to seek refuge abroad, right? But to survive in these countries, some of them became so desperate that, they had to move to deceiving, naive women into marriage just to stay in Europe. And the crazy thing is, they already have like wives they love back home. The women back home are aware. They even pretend to be cousins, waiting for the day that their husbands will leave their pretend wives and return to them. You know what makes it crazy is that these women get to call their husbands while their husbands are with their pretend wives. And what makes this so easy is the language barrier. So, for example, I think in some part of the book they are speaking Igbo, and the pretend wife she doesn't understand Igbo, and the man tells her something like, "Oh, I'm speaking to my cousin." Yeah, but yeah, I love the sense of karma in this book. Take Guachi for instance. For example, healed. Is it healed or healed? Yes, I think healed. She fought her parents because she genuinely loved Guachi. She wanted to be with Guachi. And you're like, oh, I think his color had something to do with it. But she fought her parents, she fought her family because of Guachi. Only for Guachi to go behind her back and marry a new wife. Now, for those that have read the book, please, if you've not read this book, I really want you to read it. This book is very interesting, right? Read it, come back to this episode, and I promise you, enjoy this gist. Now, for those that have read the book, do you think Healed Wolf ever take him back after he finds out that Rapo's child is not even his? You guys think he'll take him back? I personally I think she's not going to take him back, right? Because this is somebody that you fought your family for, and they are thinking, oh, this child we are having, because she was also pregnant, right? She even gave birth before Rapo. This is somebody you're thinking, oh, this child is going to bring us closer to my family. My family will want to, you know, we understand I really love this guy, only for the guy to go behind your back and marry somebody else. I personally think, in fact, I'm rooting for her not to take him back. Yeah. Moving on to the next theme, we have grief. In this book, I can't remember the particular the name of the chapter, but I remember Ogi. Ogi lost her child. I mean, that part was very heartbreaking. And Jody seemed like such a sweet boy. In this story, you see the cultural differences in how people mourn. Contest people, they don't wail, they don't cry loudly. But the Igbo way or the Nigeria way of mourning is full of expression, sound. You're shouting, hey, hey, So the contrast is was very clear in the way Ugi wanted to bury her boy. In the way she also said, remember she said she wanted to be buried the Nigerian way. Like her spirit is going to haunt them if they do not bury her the Nigerian way. And she wanted to honor him the Nigerian way in the tradition that she knows. And this reminds me that grief is not just personal. Grief is also cultural, and people grieve differently depending on where you come from and what you believe, right? Then the next theme we have is identity and loss. And for this part, I would like to highlight Prosperous. Prosperous, showed us what it means to not just lose your home, but yourself. I think her and Agu, they lost their home. So Agu and Prosperous, for a little bit context, Agu and Prosperous lived in Jos, where Agu owned like a supermarket. Business is booming, business is doing well. Then there's a riot. Riots broke out in Jos. And to think, I really love when authors write things about Nigeria because i- if you read a book written 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you can still relate to what is happening then. Like Nigeria, is not changing for the better, it's changing for worse. Like it's getting worse. Because this same riots that happened in just in this book is still happening now. In fact, it happened this month. So yeah. So Agu owned like a supermarket, business was booming. Then this riot happened. His shop was burnt down and everything collapsed. Agu convinced Prosperous. So Prosperous, as of when that stuff happened, they were now married. Okay. He convinced Prosperous to leave her banking job. She was a banker to relocate with him. Now, Prosperous really loves Agu and they both love each other, right? So they made plans to move to the US, to the UK, but then they just couldn't get to the US and the UK. And I think the travel agent said he was going to get them into Belgium. They had to even change their nationality or something, you know. And when they got to Belgium, not only so because of the way Aku was very desperate to leave, Aku was like when Prosperous was like, "Oh, they don't even speak English." Aku was like, "If they like, let them speak cats. I really need to leave this place." Because he was really, really traumatized. And when they got to Belgium, Prosperous' first shock, remember I said Prosperous is a banker. Her first shock was when she moved to Belgium and she found out that her Nigerian certificate, her work experience meant nothing in this country. And in this book, Black people were rarely seen as teachers or doctors. So she ended up working as a cleaner. And I think Aku found a job in a bread factory, yes. Now, which brings us to now that we have like a little bit of context, let's come back to our theme, identity and loss. Now, in this book, Agu is a very supportive partner while they were in Nigeria. They were doing well. Remember, I said Agu's business was moving fine. They were living very fine. They had maids, I think two. Now, my problem with this part of the book was that the maids were 14 years old, and it's so common here in Nigeria because you find little children being recruited as maids in different homes. I mean, these are kids that are supposed to be in school. It shows you how our labor, whatever in charge of all this is the word I want to say is not even good. But yeah, these are kids that are supposed to be in school. I can't remember if they were going to school from her house, but I know that she was treating them well. She get them clothes. But my point is these children are not supposed to, they're supposed to be in their house. They're supposed to be focused on school, not going to somebody's house to take care of kids, of them, because Priscilla will come back from work to help her massage her feet. Don't get me wrong, she treated them very well, but they're not supposed to be working as maids in people's home. And it's so normalized in Nigeria. We see it as normal. Yeah, you see people bringing 12-year-old from the village, 13-year-old from the village. Please, these are children. So let's just get back to the topic, right? So they were doing so well, and you see Agu helping with the cleaning and all of that. So I'm guessing the cleaning was just, oh, maybe they don't want to stress the kids living with them, and they just decide to clean maybe on Saturday and Sunday. And then you notice that Agu was, very much willing to do it. All of a sudden they came to Belgium and he's like, "Oh, cleaning is a lady's job." And I think he has something to do with his pride. So first things first, he's now working in a bread factory. This I feel like he sees this is someone that sees cleaning as something that is beneath him. He now sees cleaning as something that is, beneath him. I think he's trying to reconcile his sense of masculinity, with that kind of work. And not just that, he brings his friends home. In fact, this story, entire book is centered around Ago and Prosperous. Okay, he brings his friends home. He doesn't. Prosperous is not the one that has to do with the whole taking care of his friends, and I think his friends come every weekend. So he doesn't help serve them. He doesn't help. In fact, there's even one of his friends that says he doesn't eat moi moi. And Prosperous will have to make a whole different meal just for him to make it comfortable. And I'm like, huh? That's very crazy. And in all of this, Prosperous begins to lose herself. At some point, she started thinking about how she used to be. This is somebody that is a banker. Like she was doing so well at her job, getting paid very well, and then she left all this because she wanted to support her husband. Her husband's decision to move abroad. Her whole initial plan was to move to the east, get a banking job in the east, and she would have gotten it. So Pretorius begins to lose herself. She started blaming herself for letting things slip, for allowing her identity to fade. And then she finally made a decision that she was going to learn Dutch and she'll make changes, she'll reclaim her life. And I really love it for her. Then we also have another theme in the book. No, this one is not even a theme. Let's just talk about this. You know, I would like to say that if you know someone that truly loves you and is willing to make sacrifices for you, then the onus is on you. You have a responsibility to protect them from losing themselves in the process. What do I mean by this? In this book, in Ego's story, Ego is like the opposite of Prosperous. She sacrificed an opportunity, a job for with one of the I think one Nigerian oil firm because she wanted to support her husband's career. Her husband is a footballer. He was already playing professional football here in Nigeria, but she was before she was very supportive. She was like, I can get a job anywhere, but if your career is going to go farther than this, then we need to move. Okay. So she moves with her husband to I think the same Belgium. And where they moved to, I can't remember if it was Belgium, but yeah, she moved abroad. So later in that book, she wanted to move to London. She wanted a job that, required her to use her brains instead of her hands. I think they've stayed there for like 11 years or 8 years. I can't even really remember. So when she spoke to her husband about it, and he was like, no, that, this place is okay. I've lived my whole life here. I've lived, I think 11 or 8 years here. I can't leave my job. Now, for context, he's no longer a footballer, right? Now, the problem was even when he compared her to Prosperous, he was like, you know, oh, Prosperous is doing it. Why can't she just do it? And then this babe stood her ground and she was like, I am not Prosperous. Okay. And now the thing is that he got jealous and he kept testing her over and over again. He'll say, oh, you know, I feel like his ego got bruised because she said, oh, let me just try London and see how it works. Okay. And then when they come to visit her in London, she's always looking better than she looked before. I think at some point it described her as wearing red lipstick. She's looking shiny like those models in a magazine or something magazine. So yeah, and I think he started getting jealous. And then he started testing her. Oh, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this. Or if you don't move back, I'm going to. And one thing about ego is she's like, in fact, when you dare her, she's going to do it to the very end. That's how I perceive ego to be. Ego to be, you know. And then this man decided to file for a divorce. And he also filed for full custody of the child because they have a child together, a daughter. Ego did not even fight back. This babe just let go. But that was not enough for this man. He wasn't happy that, she gave up easily. He wanted her to suffer. He wanted to punish her. Now, in the process of him trying to punish her, he was indirectly punishing his own daughter. Now, Ego is now working as a teacher in London. You know, I think one weekend she called to say, oh, she was going to be busy that weekend. And he told her, oh, that if she reschedules, he's not going to allow her see their daughter anymore. Mind you, he has full custody. Okay. Now, at one point in the book, I think she was not able to see her. I don't know if she reached out during that period or whatever. But yeah, I think he stopped speaking to her. They are no longer talking or something like that. Where it dawned on him was when his daughter was, I think he was walking with her to school, and then she said something about, oh, she wanted to be a teacher. I can't remember if it was a teacher or a doctor. And then she was like, oh, you need to be white to be a teacher or a doctor. And then that was when it occurred to him that because um the his daughter is surrounded by white teachers, white doctors. Remember, Ego, her mother is a teacher. Now, because she's surrounded by white teachers and white doctors, she started believing that, you had to be white to be a doctor or a teacher. And that was where he knew that, you know, he had to call Ego. And I think he gave the daughter to Ego or whatever. I can't remember how it went. But yeah. Now my question is, why do people demand loyalty through suffering? Not sacrifice, oh. It's okay to, I mean, the price you pay for community is inconvenience, right? Sometimes you might make one or two sacrifices here and there just to make your friend or your partner happy. But then there are people that they want you to prove your love to them through pain. Okay. Now they want to test your limit to see how much you can take for them. I feel like this stems from insecurity. I believe that sacrifices should be voluntarily, like it should be given freely. But if it is suffering, I beg, because this the way her husband was demanding it, it was coercive. Like he wanted her to prove her devotion by, you know, I don't know, control. I don't think that is love. I feel like that is a manipulation. In fact, jealousy. Because I don't know, why do you have this need to, dominate? And, I love that at the end, you know, he just found out that it's his daughter that is suffering, right? The person is trying to punish. She's not even fighting back. She's not even, like, she doesn't even, not like, I don't know if they did not really tell us if he cares or not, but yeah. But yeah, I just love that at the end he was able to find out that it's just his pride and it was just jealousy. I mean, he cannot believe that, oh, this babe is not with him and she's doing so good for herself. So in this book, I also like Shylock. Shylock from the first story. The first story's title is The Transfiguration of Rapu or Rapo. Rapo is somebody's name. I love how they described him as a man who doesn't do funny business. And for a little bit context, Guachi was hiding his second wife, Rapu. Remember Guachi from earlier when I spoke about how Guachi married Healed? Is he Healed or Healed? Yes, Healed. Healed fought her family for Guachi, and Guachi got like his second wife. He brought her to Belgium. He was hiding his second wife in Shylock's house, right? And now he was hiding Rapu in Shylock's house. Now, some men would have seen it as a situation or an opportunity to take advantage of Rapu, maybe even try to sleep with her, but not Shylock. Shylock is here for business. He's just like, please, just give me money, stick to our agreement. And he was very honest and genuine. So I would rate this book a 9/10. Yeah, I rate this book a solid 9/10. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. If you've read Better Late Than Never by Chika Unigwe, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you've not read it, make sure you read it and let me know your favorite story, okay? Yeah, okay. Don't forget to share this episode, subscribe, and share it with a friend, your book club, and then come back for more book discussions. I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Bye.